Turning and finishing a wood pen. In this case, a color grain Oasis. This would apply to any wood pen. The only difference with turning wood is I'm going to use a regular carbide tip cutter as opposed to the negative rake cutter. Negative rakes do not work in wood. Here we go. And we are making a 4-bump. Which means that I want to center it, and then I want to quarter it. Now the regular cutters tend to snag on the edges, so I have a technique where I start in the corner and I roll down. Roll down. That way you don't get any catches, because if you hit it wrong, it'll bounce your tool and it'll chip the wood. Now I've got my mark, but I am looking at distances and I want to center the half. And I always favor the tips because you have to round those over, so this could be just a little bigger than this. And then you want to make the other side symmetrical. That end's a little short, but no worries. Same rules apply. Push downhill and then smooth your way back uphill. For beginning turners, wood is probably the easiest thing to learn on. Get yourself some scrap lumber, some 2x4s, some 2x2s. And just spend the day turning. Don't get that false sense of security though. Wood is not immune from blowout. some woods can be delicate. Okay, there we go. For dry sanding, I tend to turn my speed down a little bit further with woods. I actually like to keep it somewhere around 1,000, 800 to 1,000, somewhere in the 9s. Depends on the wood. Spectraply, or this color grain is the brand name of it, is pretty forgiving to speed. You can go a little faster with that. Softer woods, especially the red cedar, is really soft, and you probably want to slow down a little bit more with that. I am using 120, but I don't want to put a lot of deep scratches, so I'm pretty much just shaping, making sure things are smooth. Trying to get the chatter out of the valleys. You can feel a little bit of roughness in the valleys where the tool was working and the blank was vibrating. You want to smooth all that out. You want it nice and silky smooth all the way. You want to work on your bumps and round them over. Make sure everything's nice and round. Get all the wood smoothed down. Now, on some species, I would stop the lathe at this point, either with the old sandpaper or new, depending on how bad it is, sand with the grain. By hand and lightly. The color grain Oasis, you don't really have to worry about doing that. But most wood species, you're going to want to take your time and get those round tool marks out and sand with the grain. Let's move up to 240 grit. This should go a little quicker this time. We've got the thing shaped. It's nice and smooth. All we're doing is removing the scratches from the previous grit. Once again, stop the lathe, take a look at what you're doing. There are round marks if you look, and I'm sure the camera can see it better than my eyes even seeing it. You can see the round swirl marks, but those will be covered up with the CA, that's fine. I'm looking for any deep scratches that really pop out, and I don't see anything. We're good to go. But, once again, it doesn't hurt to go with the grain, especially get down in those valleys. Get everything smoothed out. .400 grit. It's a misnomer that with wood, when you finish wood, whether you're putting stain on it, polyurethane, even a coat of paint, that the higher grit you go, the better you are, and that's not true. There's a limit with woods, and really 400 is beyond that limit. Most times when you're finishing, 250 is good enough for wood. You don't really want to get it any smoother than that. You want your wood to still have a tooth, so it can grab hold of whatever you're putting on it. Now in this case, I'm using CA, and CA will stick just fine even if I went up to even 800 grit. But it's foolish to go anything beyond 800 grit on this. You're just basically wasting your time. Now I'm perfectly happy with this, but just for good measure, I'm just going to give it a nice wipe with the grain with 400 grit. Get down in the valleys. You just want to make sure everything's kosher. You know, I'm looking for stuff like that. There's a highlight there. What is that? Is that a scratch, or is that just the way the grain and the colors? I think that's just in the wood. That's just the grain. But it caught my eye. And that's what you're looking for. Anything that catches your eye as you're looking it over in working areas. What's not consistent? What looks out of place? Is there any tear out or any dings or anything that you really got to concentrate on? And we're looking really good. Now, I'm going to turn the speed down to about 800. And for wood, I like to use some denatured alcohol, DNA. And you know, I'm pretty wet. I mean, that's a good wet towel, and I'm soaking this thing in denatured alcohol. And I'm getting all the sawdust, oils, anything that's any kind of residue I'm going to get off this blank. And now we'll just give it a few seconds to air dry. Now you even stop it for a second. And then you want to look for paper towel fuzz. You notice I wiped it with a dry towel, you'll get fuzzies. And you just, any dust, fuzz, I find that just lightly brushing with the grain gets all that trash off. I should have been more meticulous. I'm filming and not really thinking about what I'm doing, but I really should have cleaned my dust out. You want to get all this dust and all this stuff out of here. You want a nice clean environment. You don't want any specks or garbage in your CA finish. You want it to be nice and clean. We'll be all right though. Now, as I explained in other videos, I use a cheap finger cots. You can buy these on Amazon. Just look up finger cots. They're a medical application, I think. But they're the best thing we found for applying CA. The CA doesn't stick real hard to them. They do get chewed up after a while, but they're very economical. They're cheap, and they work really good. They're nice and thick. You don't want the CA burning your fingers. Now, a lot of YouTube guys, they'll use masking tape, and they'll just put a piece of masking tape over the finger, and that works fine. But the CA will stick to the masking tape, and I've had it happen that, you know, you can still burn your finger through it. Get myself in camera shot. I'm just using my applicator towels here. Fold it up. Speed is 800-ish, somewhere in 800. It's 860 in this case. Apply a little bit of CA, let it soak in for a second, and then quickly wipe it across. You don't have to spaz out. You don't, you know, it's not going to dry instantly. You got a few seconds to work it. Make sure you get the blank covered real nice. Don't slop it on. You don't want the stuff running off and splattering, but you want a nice, fairly heavy coat across the blank. Now this is going to take time. This is the application of CA. You have to be patient. Let it dry. The glue pretty much dries fairly instantly, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, but you want to make sure that it's fully dry before you touch that again. A lot of turners, if you're worried about it, and I use it myself, you use accelerator, spritz it. The problem being the accelerator is expensive, and when you do a lot of pens, you don't want to roll through the money like that. So you tend to just be patient, walk away, go get you a drink of water, go do something. You know, walk away for 30 seconds or a minute. Let it dry. Take my towel, wipe the accelerator off. I can feel if there's any globs of CA, if I have to work any areas. Did I screw up? Did I put too much CA on? Did it build up? Usually, when you do this, the CA builds up on the high points. You know, and you'll feel, blah, 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 you'll feel that little CA blob. So right there, stop. Even with one coat, grab your piece of wet sandpaper and get that blob out of there. Don't cause further problems for yourself. Feel it out. Take your time. Okay, coat 2. A little bit on the applicator, let it soak in, brush it across. Again, You can see it go on in the camera. It's a nice heavy coat, but it's not so thick that it's building up and blobbing and running. I don't want it splattering off the lathe. I just want a nice, even, good coat. Now for wood, I generally put 4 coats of CA on, unless there's a reason to put more on. Now sometimes as you're wet sanding after applying 4 coats and you see a deficient area, a problem, you want to sand down. Sometimes you sand down too far and you hit wood again, and then you apply a couple more coats. I have put up to 16 coats on wood, and the truth of it is the more that you put on, the shinier it's going to get, but you've got to smooth it between every 4 coats or so. You're going to want to come in and wet sand it and smooth things out. Make sure it's dry, and then put another 4 coats on. The further you go, the shinier it's going to be, and the more of a protective shell you're going to put on this. I find for what we do though, 4 coats usually is more than sufficient. In fact, those 2 coats that I just put on were really good coats. Everything went well. They're nice, good thickness. I could probably even stop right here and polish it up. And this pen's fine. This pen will wear for years. It would take you years of using this to wear through that CA. But because that's what we do, we're going to put another 2 coats on. I'm going to spritz it a little just in the interest of time. Again, if I weren't filming this and it was just me, I'd take this opportunity to take a break. I'd walk away from this for a minute. Most of what we do here, it requires patience. You can rush through it fast if you want, but to do a job right, you've got to pay attention to what you're doing and take your time. You don't cut corners. Are we perfect? Are you going to find flaws in our work? Oh yeah, you're going to find flaws in our work. These things are handmade. We're not perfect. But I go by the motto that we're fallible humans and we're not perfect. You strive for perfection knowing that you're going to come up short. But anything over 90%, you're doing good. If this pen turns out to be 93%, I'm satisfied. I try to do the best I can. Okay, I'm turning the speed up now to, roughly 1600. 1620 works. Let it dry. Again, the impulse is to just wipe that thing down, but I want to make sure it's dry. I don't want to mess up now. I've got 4 coats of CA. The last thing I want to do is touch a wet spot and have to start over. Patience. Listen to your little voice, like Thomas Magnum used to do. My little voice is telling me that it's dry, it's time. Now, I start out with the 1500 grit. I don't go to the 800 because the 800 is too aggressive. I don't want to put any scratches in this at this point. What I'm trying to do is smooth that CA down. The CA, when you put it on, is as good as you can be, you're going to get ripple. And you want to smooth that ripple out. So I'm at a dull piece of 1500 too. You can see this paper's been worked. This paper's been worked hard. It's time to change it. But that's okay for what I'm doing here. I'm going to go to town on this with this used up 1500, and I'm just going to use it to polish that CA. I'm not too worried about burning through it because I got 4 pretty good coats on here. It would probably take me 12 hours to burn through that CA with this paper. Now the 800, that's another story. That's fairly aggressive. eventually burn through that CA with the 800. That's why I don't do it for this step. All that slurry you're seeing, that's a thin layer of CA that's coming off. And what you're left with is a nice, smooth, glossy finish. I just moved to the 4000, by the way. That's what this is, the 4000. And again, it's fairly used up. It's soft. I've done, oh, I don't know, 15 pens so far with this. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes, and like anything else, the more you work it, the shinier it's going to get. I'm feeling pretty good about that though. So I'm going to dry it off. Put my wet paper down here and soak up my water. I'm going to crank the speed up to around 2000 RPM. CA, you want to be careful. You don't want to much go over 2000, go much over, because you can literally burn through it. Just like with all my other products, just like what I showed in previous videos, I'm using Meguiar's Plastex. And I am using a microfiber cloth towel, which is a no-no. I've said this in the other videos. This conventional wisdom says you never use cloth on a lathe. And I'm going to tell you the right way to do things. The reason is a paper towel, if you get it sucked up, it's going to rip and break in your hand. If you get this cloth towel sucked up in this lathe and your hand's wrapped up in it, the potential's there to hurt yourself. Let's just put it that way. So be careful. Use your brain. Think about what you're doing. Be careful with it. Okay, I'm applying this very liberally. I mean, I'm pacing it up. Now, my fingers are loose. If this gets sucked up, I'm going to just jerk my hand out as fast as I can. I'm not going to wrap it though. I'm not wrapping the towel. I'm just pinching. And I'm applying decent pressure to this. I don't want to stop the thing turning, but I am applying some pressure here. Look at the shine. Look at that come out. And the more you go, the better it gets. But I'm pretty good. That's a pretty pen right there. And that's what we're looking for. And then you use the dry towel, further polishes it. You want to get all that polish out. You want a nice, clean, shiny, smooth surface. And I would say we achieved that. That's how you do wood.